Before we get to our show, here is a podcast we think you're going to love.
I'm Theo.
And I'm Cordy.
And together we host
Freaky Franchise,
a podcast where we unmask horror movies based on quantity over quality.
We watch horror franchises movie by movie and review every single one.
That's right. We don't skip a single film, no matter how bad or difficult to find it is.
And we ask the important questions, such as...
Why are Freddy's arms so long?
Why is there so much butt touching in these movies?
And, of course, the most obvious. Is Candyman hot?
It's hard to tell.
You can join us every other Friday at freakyfranchise.com or wherever you find podcasts.
Hello, friends and enemies. It's time for Perhaps It's You, your favorite unofficial Unsolved Mysteries rewatch podcast. Podcast? My name is Liz.
My name is Samantha. Should we be telling people this is their favorite unofficial? Isn't there like 60 unofficial Unsolved Mysteries rewatch podcasts? Surely we're not people's favorite.
Yeah, that's probably not true. I just find hubris really funny. So I don't actually think that we are people's favorite, but I find saying that hilarious.
You know what? If we put that out into the universe, then maybe
it'll come true. That's the secret.
I don't, it's not a category on iTunes, Unsolved Mysteries, so we don't know how we rank, but...
That would be hilarious if that was its own. It was like comedy, finance, wellness, whatever. Which I think they only recently added true crime as its own category. And then all of a sudden it's just like Unsolved Mysteries.
At this point, I feel like it should be, but, I mean, we're not Apple, so... We don't make the rules.
No, we make very few rules. We do want to say hello to BD Wong, wherever he is. Hope he's well. Hope he's safe. Hi, BD Wong.
Yes, hi, BD Wong. We assume you're listening.
I know he's listening. I'm going to start off with apologizing for my sound last week, which was real fucking quiet.
I don't think it was that quiet. I mean, it was, and I was sort of... enhanced it in post, if you will.
It's pretty quiet. I think we've got it sorted out today. Knock on wood. Look, remote podcasting is not our thing, and we're really trying to make the best of the apocalypse, but it's been a struggle.
Probably shouldn't admit this, but we've had an issue with quiet microphones for I don't know how long we've been doing this. 3 years, since the beginning, and it took Mac all of 5 minutes to figure out that you could adjust the microphone volume independently, which seems like something we should have guessed at some point. Literally every time we would sit down to record, we'd be like, well, it's quiet, don't know what to do about that. All right, let's go.
I mean, I don't know that's the only problem. We probably have more than one problem is the thing.
Well, you know what? This is true.
So it's probably not quite so easy to solve. So I hope if last week was your first time listening to the podcast that you'll give us another try and not throw it in the garbage because of that sound. But maybe you did, and there's nothing to be done about that.
I still think we're sounding better than we were when we first started remote recording. So... We're improving.
Yeah.
And that's all that counts.
At least we're not depending on trying to get to the Brooklyn Park Library to record and banging on the door let us in, and they're like, there's a pandemic. No.
There's always a silver lining.
All right, a pandemic. Yeah, do you have any updates?
I have an announcement, and that is that we have some Perhaps It's You merch. But you have to be in Animal Crossing to get it.
I was like, we do?
Thank you to listener Alvin, who made some first of all, I have Perhaps It's You hat that I've been wearing in my Animal Crossing island.
My friend Chris is wearing it too. I'm very excited.
Amazing. And Alvin also made some custom designs that you can put up on your wall. I haven't been able to figure out the QR code thing with the Nintendo Switch because I am really new to this. But if you know how to do that, you can join our Facebook group, find the post I made about Animal Crossing. It shouldn't be that hard. You can use the search bar and you will see kind of a thread of all of the things that Alvin made. It's amazing. There's a Robert Stack. There's, if you remember Lip Curtain, the guy with the very impressive mustache, you could have Lip Curtain on your the wall of your Animal Crossing house. You can get the Perhaps It's You hat. Highly recommend. Also, shout out and thank you to listener Kayla, who came and visited my island and gave me a fortune teller set, complete with tarot cards.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
So, Kayla, I sent you some pears. Check your mailbox. They should be there.
Amazing.
By very important updates.
Okay, I have an announcement also. And that is that I would like to make a Perhaps It's You zine, our first zine. And so I'm calling on our 5 listeners to contribute. Maybe artwork, maybe a comic, maybe a poem, I don't know. Something related to the Perhaps It's You universe that we could include in the zine. So if you could submit those to perhaps it's you podcast@gmail.com. And then if it's included, you'll get a free copy of the zine and you'll get 3 free months of our Patreon episodes.
I am so excited for this because we have some hella creative and talented listeners. And so I'm so excited to see what they come up with.
I'm really looking forward to, seeing people's submissions and putting it together. I think it's going to be really fun. And then we will probably sell that on our website and then also give that out to our top tier patrons as well. Is my current thinking. Don't
and I would
quote
say
me
if
on
you
that.
have any questions, feel free to reach out via email too.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, that's
Yeah.
going to be really fun. How is the Beanie Baby zine coming?
So me and friend of the pod, Rochelle, are currently working on a zine. We're currently collecting poems for a zine on Beanie Babies. So if you want to get in on that too, I mean, you could send that over as well. They're poems from the perspective of Beanie Babies. And the ones that we've gotten so far from our friends are so good. Like, really have exceeded my expectations. Since we're all like stuck at home doing indoor activities, I asked Rochelle, like, oh, would you like to make a zine together? Like, that would be fun. And she's super into history. She's super into Sherlock Holmes. She's into true crime. So I thought maybe we would make like a little like factoid zine or something, which the great thing about zines is they can be literally anything. And she was like, no, poems about Beanie Babies.
This was Rochelle's idea? For some reason, I associated this with you immediately.
That's because it makes no sense and is goofy as hell. And I was like, yeah, do you want to do like crime facts or, something like that? And she was like, no, poems about Beanie Babies. And it just blew my mind. And I was like, yeah, you're right. So the other night, my friend Chris, I was talking about, that is also wearing a Perhaps It's You hat, just like spontaneously wrote some haikus for it. And they were like the fucking funniest. I was like crying on our like video chat of him writing these haikus from the perspective of different Beanie Babies. Like, I don't have them in front of me, but I feel like I might be able to say one or close to one that was written from the perspective of the rooster named Strut, which was something like, hopefully I don't mangle his words, but it was something like, I strut down the street, pecking everyone I see. I know you like it. And I love it so much.
I'm so excited. And this really brought me to, I played with Beanie Babies so much as a child. It was like our toy of choice. And we had so many Beanie Babies, and of course we ripped the tags off and made immediately worthless, according to my mom.
I think they're all worthless. I wouldn't worry about it. I don't think any of them really have value, except maybe that Princess Diana one, because it's so weird. But
well, you did bring to my attention the Peace Bear selling for $50,000 on eBay. Now, I don't think that means anyone's going to buy it for that price. But I was kind of like,
anyone can put something on eBay for $50,000. That does not mean anyone's going to buy it for $50,000. Someone is working on a poem of that famous photo of the divorce where the couple is splitting up the Beanie Baby collection. There's going to be a poem about that. Yeah, maybe we'll sell that on our website too. I don't know. I'm pretty excited about it. It looks like it's going to be hilarious.
That's really exciting.
I'll have more details as they come to fruition.
Great.
I know everybody is wondering about the weather here, and it's a motherfucking blizzard. That's what it is.
Yeah, what the fuck? Is it okay, so I feel like we've had this podcast for like 3 years, and every single year of this podcast there has been an April blizzard, which makes me think this is our fault.
I just thought that's what Minnesota was like. Is that not true? Is there not always an April blizzard?
No.
Because it seems like there is. Because it's
No.
happened most of the time I've lived here.
I'm sure I could look this up on the internet, but I feel like prior to the one we had 3 years ago, there hadn't been there had been snow in April, but not a blizzard. Like not so much snow, like plowable or whatever. We're gonna get like 6 inches today. Like what the fuck? It sucks, and it sucks especially because a lot of us don't have to like commute in it tomorrow. Thank goodness. Being outside, I feel like has been like the only thing that we've had to look forward to. Like, oh, at least I can take my dogs for a walk or whatever. Go outside and pull weeds or shit in my garden. But now all I have is fucking we have this snow.
I mean, I think it makes feeling inside can't talk. It makes staying inside feel more appropriate, where it's like, yeah, I'm staying inside. There's a blizzard. But also Mac's gonna go shovel the sidewalk and not me. So it's easy for me to say that. Yeah, the dogs were not happy when I just opened the door for them, and they looked at me like, where's the door to yesterday when it was 65 degrees? We don't want to go out in this. And it's like, don't blame you. Looks terrible. I pee in a toilet. So I'm a civilized being. Okay, should we end the waffle and get into the meat of Unsolved Mysteries?
Seems like we should.
Last week, I said that this was Season 5, Episode 5, and I was just wrong. It was Season 5, Episode 4.
I literally thought we were covering Episode 5 right up until the second I published the completed episode on our website, at which I was like, wait, where was the last episode? Because what I normally do is I copy the previous one, and I just use that as my template, and I was like, wait, where is Episode 4? The last one I see is Episode 3. Wasn't this Episode 5? Yeah. But you know what? Time is meaningless at this point, and
It's all a scam. It doesn't matter.
it is what it is. So today we are talking about Season 5, Episode 5.
Oh, yes, we are. Okay. Dear listeners, I'm going to start us off today. I go first. And we are talking about... No, wait. That's the wrong one. That's the one when I thought it was Episode 5. The actual Season 5, Episode 5, we're starting with a missing person. So this is the case of Patricia Carlton, who, going all the way back to January 14th of 1971. But we start the case in spring of 1967 when her sister, Mary Urich, went to visit her. And she had, as Unsolved Mysteries would like you to think, a premonition of dread. She had a bad feeling as she went over to her sister's house. And when she arrived, so she found that her 2 children unattended. Her son was like playing on the porch and the door was wide open. And her daughter was like in the kitchen, just like playing in the sink, having a field day, as Mary Urich said, and my mother would say. And so she asked the children, which is also like the most wholesome thing to find unattended children doing. They were just like playing, having a good time. And she was like, children, where's your mom? And they were like, oh, she's asleep. And she was like, huh, that's weird. And she found her sister, Patricia, passed out on her bed. She was rushed to the emergency room, and they determined that she had an aneurysm that was blocking blood flow to Pat's brain. So they ended up doing a risky surgery. I mean, particularly since this was in 67, that required like clamping off an artery in her neck in order to do the brain surgery. The surgery was successful, but it did have some complications, meaning that her memory ended up being permanently affected by the surgery. When she awoke, she had no idea who she was. She didn't recognize her children. She didn't remember how to do simple tasks, like whatever. She had to be taught how to do everything again. And because her husband was a total loser, he divorced her and took custody of the children because
fuck that guy.
Oh yeah, that's terrible. But it was Unsolved Mysteries said it was too much for him, so he bailed, and she had to like recover and rebuild her life all on her own. In November of '68, a woman was hired to care for Pat called Marianne, and was told that Pat had wandered off. 6 weeks later, she was picked up for vagrancy in Alabama, where she had lived where she was younger. So her sister comes to get her, and she's like, "Do you remember me?" And she was like, "Yes, I remember you, but I don't remember how I got here, whatever." So she takes her back home.
Was that in the episode, that part about her having lived in Alabama before?
Yeah,
Or
they
was
mentioned
that-
it very briefly.
I feel like I missed that. I feel like Unsolved Mysteries this whole time was making it seem like she was just going to random places.
No, her and her sister had lived there when they were children.
Okay.
And so I think that, at
Some of her long-term memory was still intact.
Right. That at some point in her wandering off, she remembered living in Alabama, but she didn't remember her current home in Texas. So she was trying to, go home and find her loved ones. She just didn't have all of the information available to her. After that, she meets her boyfriend, Troy, which there's this really cute reenactment that she's like outside. She's got her. Okay. Also, all the hair in this segment is so high, so close to God. You will not believe it.
Pat's sister's hair is startlingly huge.
When she's talking to you in like Unsolved Mysteries present day, when she's telling her story, her hair is so goddamn high that it goes out of the shot. Like, you can't see the top of her hair because it could be like Marge Simpson. It could just keep going and going and going. We don't know because it's gone. But anyway, she's sitting outside with like, I don't know if it's technically a beehive or what, but she's got like the up 60s beauty queen hair. She's sitting outside, maybe drinking an iced tea or whatever. And someone says like, "Oh, I want to introduce you to Troy." And apparently they was just like, he described it as this magnetism, that they were just like instantly drawn to each other. And he didn't at first know that she was having these memory problems. But when he found out, he said that didn't make him care for her less. It actually, in a way, made him care for her more because he was so concerned about her. So they dated for several months and then married on January 3rd, 1969. He encouraged her to fight for joint custody of her children, and a court hearing was scheduled for May. 7 days before the hearing, Troy came home for lunch and found that Pat had vanished. Her purse was still there, her money, her wallet, her ID, whatever. That's when he found out that she had wandered off before. Nobody had told him that. Okay. So after searching for 3 weeks, she was sighted on the other side of Houston. So he goes to pick her up, and in the reenactment, he like pulls up in his truck and he's like, "Hey, darling, can I offer you a ride or something?" I don't know. It's so sweet. And she couldn't explain where she had been for the past few weeks, and just like clearly didn't want to talk about it, which I sort of take as a combination of her not remembering and her being embarrassed that she has this issue.
That's what the reenactment made it seem, and I'm sure that's true.
Yeah. So in the next year, unfortunately, she wandered off 7 more times, which is an awful lot to be worried about your spouse and their safety. The last time she left was on January 14th, 1971. She had been married to Troy for a year. At the time that she left, she had no identification or money. For 13 months, there was absolutely no trace of her. Then she surfaced at a welfare office in San Diego. Her memory had clearly partially returned. She gave the welfare worker her maiden name and her birthplace, and the worker was able to contact one of her aunts in Birmingham. However, this aunt is like not helpful and believed she was still in Houston, so like didn't do anything to follow up. Which what?
I don't know what was up with that. They were like, she's here. And she's
She's
like, nah.
here.
The last I heard, she was in Houston. Must be a mistake. What?
Is that you don't want to look into that anymore?
Call
Like someone
her sister. Like, check into this. Hey, I got a weird call. Like, what's this about? No, nothing.
Yeah, nothing. Which, okay, not all family is useful. So, after that, there's one last reported sighting of her in Washington in 1977 when she was arrested, which I don't think that was in the Unsolved Mysteries, but it's on an Unsolved Mysteries wiki. Okay, so however, she has not been seen since. Troy eventually remarried in 1975, but they were very. They made sure to tell you that with the support of his current wife, he was still continuing to look for Patricia. He clearly was worried about her and cared about her. And even though Troy had gone on to have this other life with a wife and children, he still wanted to know what happened to Patricia and if she was okay.
Yeah, Troy seems like a nice guy.
Yeah. He was clearly like, this was someone that he cared about a lot and someone that he loved, and the idea of them just like wandering off one day never to be seen again is horrific. So then if you're me, you're thinking, oh, this poor woman, she probably died somewhere, there was no one to identify her body, you know, she's one of these Jane Does.
That was
And
my thought.
then the update comes up. After 33 years, she's fucking found.
I could not believe it.
I think I almost fell off the couch. Or I was like, I'm sorry, what? Yeah, so let's go to Unsolved Mysteries Wiki. It says, so sadly, Troy passed away in 97 without ever finding Pat, which does really suck. However, she was located alive and safe, living in San Francisco in August of 2004. 33 years after she disappeared. What happened was, so she lost even more of her memory because she had a stroke after the incident where she vanished.
Oh.
So
That's
I don't
sad.
think, yeah, so it seems like, I don't have a ton of information here, but it seems like she whatever memory she had recovered, she lost again. But when she was found, she still recognized and remembered her two sisters, Barbara and Marianne. So in October of 2004, she was reunited with them and her children, which must have just been so overwhelming. Pat's family reports that she is safe and living with them. She has not wandered off since. So, and unfortunately, Mary Ann passed away in 2005, only a year after their reunion, but at least they got some time together. So that is wild.
I could not believe that update, and I'm glad you had some more information, because Unsolved Mysteries does this thing sometimes where it's like, and she was found. All right, next one. And I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
They found her? That's incredible. So, yeah.
They found her 33 years later, and you're like, I'm sorry, what? So
That's
it's
wild.
interesting that they don't call this an amnesia case. I don't know if this technically doesn't count as amnesia, but this is a case where someone wandered off, lost their memory, and was actually okay. Which is what Unsolved Mysteries is always trying to suggest happened to missing people. And you go, that seems very optimistic and naive and pretty unlikely. Well, fortunately, that is what happened to Patricia Carlton. She was alive and safe. And well, she just didn't remember.
Yeah, I thought that mystery was really interesting. It's really too bad that Troy never got to know what happened to her. What a fucking bummer.
I know. It clearly was really important to him. And yeah, he seemed like a good guy. And he kept her children. He I don't know what the right ways to phrase that is. He continued to raise her children after her disappearance and was a father to them. So he is clearly like a stand-up dude. Unlike her first husband that was just kind of like, see you never.
Yeah, what a fucking dirtbag. Also, the actor they found for Troy is incredibly attractive. He was a snack. I was like, wow.
You're like, no wonder there is this magnetism. Actually, the actress that played her was very beautiful as well. She had this like perfect like porcelain skin and these like really pink cheeks and was just like, oh, well, hello. Yeah. So of course, let's hope those two reenactors hooked up. That would be awesome.
Oh, what a story! Oh yeah, that'd be. I want a tale of that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was a good one. Okay, we have a wanted next, and we are looking for the killer of Lucy Turmel. So we are taken to like a resort town in Canada called Banff. Banff. I 100% thought Robert Stack was saying Banff, like badass motherfucker.
I find Banff very hard to say. Maybe I'm alone on that, but
I feel like it's impossible to pronounce the N. It comes out sounding like an M.
Banff.
It's Banff.
Yeah.
But it sounds like Banff when you say it. So I'm going to say Banff, but yeah, anyway.
Sorry, Banff.
Anyway, so
We
Lucy
do our best.
it looks like a beautiful place. We get like a overhead like shot from like a plane. It's in the mountains. It's very very beautiful, and we're told that Lucy Trammell moved there to sort of find like this paradise because Banff is sort of known as a paradise town. Lucy Trammell was a 23-year-old cab driver. She moved to Banff, Alberta in 1987 to start a new life. She started work at 8 p.m. on the night of May 16th. She basically had like a part-time job working as a cab driver. Since there's so many tourists in this town, they need a lot of cab drivers to get them around. So she enjoyed this job, and on the night of May 16th, 1990, was kind of a normal night. Nothing was strange. She spent most of the night picking up people in the downtown tourist area. At the end of her shift, she had taken in just over $100. Around 1:40 a.m., she arrived at the Works nightclub on Spray Avenue. This was probably going to be her last fare of the evening. While she was there, she spoke to another cab driver named Larry Laterno. A
Who
man
has a fucking terrible mustache. Sorry, Larry. Your mustache sucks.
His mustache sucked, and okay, the brother's mustache, did you give it a name?
Oh, I only gave Larry's mustache a name, which is the Cloud Licker.
Makes it sound really gross.
It's like so pale and scraggly and like barely there.
It is. You kind of have to squint to see Larry's mustache. Her brother is interviewed for the show, and his mustache I thought we should name after the lift bridge in the iconic lift bridge in Duluth, because it looks like a lift bridge. It looks like a big bridge.
I think that's a fine name.
It was
a solid name.
I'm not sure if he like trimmed his. I don't know if you would call it a soul patch when it's accompanied by like a mustache and like other facial hair, but it's like a triangle. It's very strange, and I don't know if he did that on purpose or what, but it's a look.
It's to summon demons.
Maybe. Let's hope. Okay, so a man and two women entered the back of Lucy's cab, and she called...
But I have a question about Larry, though.
Okay.
The coworker. Did you feel like he was a little obsessed with her?
I got this feeling like he was. It was because the way he acted was almost like you would expect a boyfriend to talk about her. It was like that was the vibe he was giving off, but as far as I could tell, they were just like coworkers. They didn't even mention a friendship necessarily.
I didn't even get the impression that she'd been driving a cab for that long.
Yeah,
right?
I don't think so.
But he talks about her in this very like intimate way, which maybe they had like a fling or something, but I just sort of, I don't know. It stood out to me.
Yeah, I would say that's true. And I think because she hadn't been there for very long, they probably didn't have a lot of like friends necessarily to interview for the show. And I mean, he was the last person to see her, so I can see why they interviewed him. But yeah, you're right. The way he talked about her was strangely intimate. So the man and woman entered her cab, and she called. Larry heard her call out a destination to the dispatcher, whose name was Bruce. About 12 minutes later, Larry contacted Bruce and asked if he had heard from Lucy, which Bruce had not. Which maybe that was the part that I found weird. But he was like checking up on her, but I don't know. Maybe it was unusual not to like see her around again or something. Bruce asked for Lucy on the radio but didn't receive a response. 20 minutes later, Larry decided to begin searching for Lucy. He passed by her last known destination as well as her house, which was less than a block away. He spotted her cab. However, there was a man driving the cab. He followed the cab, and he also called the dispatch, because he was like, well, maybe the dispatcher was driving her cab for some reason, and the guy was like, no, it's clearly been stolen. And he decides to like pursue the stolen cab. Then they have like a car chase down like Main Street.
Yeah, he's like, but then again, okay, it's nice that he checks up on her, right? But not that much time has passed. We're talking about like 15, 20 minutes, and he's like, is Lucy okay? Is Lucy okay? And then he goes looking for her cab, which it just seems like a lot to me.
It does seem like a lot. I mean, in hindsight, we have the benefit of knowing that like something did happen to Lucy, but I feel like if this might be unusual and creepy behavior if this if what
Right.
happened to Lucy didn't happen. It's kind of like maybe this was her last fare. Maybe she just went home.
I see this all the time on like TV shows that have an ensemble cast. Like if one character is gone for like fucking 15 minutes, everybody's like, is something wrong? What happened to Joseph? And you're like, it's been 15 minutes. Like, calm down. Like in real life, you don't see people for periods of time and you don't start to like panic about them.
Also, it's 2 a.m. at this point. Like this was
wouldn't
probably
she have just
her
gone home?
her last fare. She probably just went home and maybe didn't feel the need to like tell Larry that she was going home. I don't know.
But anyway, he was right, so I probably shouldn't question it, but it did seem odd.
He was right, and then he proceeded to have this like car chase at 80 miles per hour down the streets of Banff, which the reenactment makes seem pretty intense.
It's probably the most exciting thing that's ever happened in Banff.
Pretty sure it was. He finally cornered the cab on a dead-end street, but the unidentified man jumped out and ran into the woods. Tragically, at about the same time, Lucy's body was found in the middle of a road a few miles away where her cab had been abandoned. This is not the time to make a joke, but she was found on Squirrel Street, which for some reason I find like the funniest name for a street.
It's cute. It's a cute street name.
It is cute. I kind of want to live on Squirrel Street. Anyway.
Why not?
Poor Lucy, she was stabbed to death and dumped in the middle of the street. She had been stabbed repeatedly in the neck. Her murder...
Oh my god. I missed
know.
that. That's terrible.
Her murder was the first to occur in the area in over 20 years. The killer took only her jacket, her wallet, and the $130 that she had made that night.
Robbers that are listening to this show, I'm going to plead with you. Look, maybe you're really strapped. Something's gone terribly wrong. Maybe you seriously need that money. I don't know. You don't need to stab people in the neck.
Yeah,
I'm very sure she would have given that money. She didn't need to die.
That's
just
the
awful.
thing. Like, I don't know. It sucks. So when her cab was examined, blood was found on the seat, dashboard, and steering wheel. However, none of it belonged to Lucy, which was interesting. They speculated that she may have been stabbed outside of the cab, and in the struggle, the killer accidentally cut himself. 18 hours after the killing, the murder weapon, which was a kitchen knife stolen from a local hotel, was found in a local driveway. This led police to believe that the killer was from out of town. Not sure why.
Because he didn't have his own knife at home, I guess. He had to steal a knife. Something you see on Forensic Files a lot that the blood in the cab kind of makes me think of is that from stabbing, this is gross, but from stabbing someone, your hand and the knife gets covered with blood. And what can happen a lot is that someone's hand slips off the handle and onto the blade of the knife because the blood is slippery, right? And then they end up cut, and then their blood is also in the like blood evidence, right? Like not just the victim. So I kind of wonder if in stabbing her, that's how he injured himself and got his blood in the cab.
That makes a lot of sense because in real life is not a movie, right? Like in real life, you get covered in blood and it's slippery and you fall and you slip your hand like that.
Right, yeah.
But of course, you would never think about that normally because, what do you picture when you picture a stabbing? Probably from a movie.
Yeah, Freddy Krueger like stabs a bunch of people and then runs off to stab a bunch more people. But in real life, like stabbing people is just, I don't know.
It's kind of hard.
More treacherous than that.
So Lucy's killer had never been found, and this is why her death was featured on Unsolved Mysteries. They're trying to find this person. So the unknown man was Caucasian. He was probably in his mid-20s. Police were also looking for the 3 people who were Lucy's last fare. They were believed to have been dropped off in front of a large apartment complex. So this case is solved. In November of 1992, Ryan Jason Love was arrested and charged with Lucy's murder. So I'm reading this off of the Unsolved Mysteries wiki. He became a suspect after one of his roommates told police that the murder weapon was a knife that had belonged to Love. So actually it wasn't stolen from a local restaurant.
Weird! That's very strange.
In fact, he had previously worked at the Banff Springs Hotel. So maybe it was
Oh.
his, but it was also stolen? I don't know.
He stole it, but he stole it years ago. You know what? That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Police collected DNA samples from all known suspects except for Love, who refused their request. So two officers went undercover, posed as criminals, and befriended Love. They were able to get hairs from him.
I don't know why that strikes me as so funny. That these two Canadian police officers who, judging by the interviews with that are in the segment, are like the sweetest, nicest people. I don't know. Like, they seemed so genuinely upset that Lucy was murdered, and this was the first murder in their town in 20 years. They seemed like moved to tears by this. The idea that they could, like, I don't know, put on some fucking bandanas and leather jackets and just be like, hey, we like crimes.
That's what's so funny to me, the way this is written, is they posed as criminals. How do they do that? They just walk up to him like, hey, fellow criminal.
Yeah, they just went to pool halls and chewed a lot of gum. They would spit on the sidewalk and not even care. They were total litter bugs.
So somehow in this friendship, they were able to get a hold of some of his hair and DNA. I'm picturing them like sneaking up behind him and just like plucking.
Yeah.
DNA taken from the hair was matched to the blood found in Lucy's cab. Love was 18 at the time of the murder and reportedly killed her because he wanted to impress his relatives with money at a family reunion.
Wow. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard.
I actually read another article because he was convicted in 1994 of second-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison with parole after 20 years. So he has since been paroled, and I read an article from the time that he was paroled, and it sounded like he was like drugs were a factor in some way, and so I'm sure. Yeah. I'm a little skeptical of this family reunion thing. Maybe that's the reason he gave, but in the article I read later, they like sobriety was terms of his parole because they thought that was a significant contributing factor in his behavior.
He was like, I can't wait till I roll into this family reunion, get a little hot, and then fan myself with $130. Everyone is going to be so impressed. They're going to be like, that boy really made something of himself. We always thought he'd be in prison by now.
I'm sure that's exactly how he pictured it going down. So, like I said, in September of 2011, after 19 years in prison, he was released on parole. So, poor Lucy. That really sucks. It seems like, she moved to this small town hoping to have a new start, and this town that was known to be sort of a paradise, and instead, she was fucking murdered over $100.
She was, yeah. I'm sure it was like, well, I'm not moving somewhere dangerous. I'm moving to Banff. And then that happened.
Sucks.
Yeah, that's awful. Okay, I'm going to tell the story of a very interesting lost love now. This is a really good segment.
I totally agree.
So this is the case of Georgia Boyd, and it goes back to 1977. The segment starts in July of 76, where we see a 21-year-old Georgia Boyd meet Daryl, not Gerald, Daryl, not Tracy, Tacey. I will definitely say his name wrong several times. Daryl Tacey. They met at the fair in Richmond County, Georgia. So we see Daryl and one of his service buddies. They're just like at the fair, have a good time. And according to the reenactment, they meet Georgia over by the carousel where she's wearing like a halter crop top and bell bottoms and just looking like so 70s gorgeous. And he said he was really attracted to her dark hair and her mysterious dark eyes.
She was a woman of mystery.
Yeah. Which I didn't realize that being brunette made you a woman of mystery, but I fully embrace it.
Okay, first question, probably of many. Do you think, so they met in Georgia. She called herself Georgia. Spoiler, we will learn that is not her real name. Do you think she met these dudes and was like, my name is, Georgia?
She like literally looked up at a sign that was like Richmond County, Georgia, and she was like, hi, I'm Georgia. I'm a woman of mystery.
She also claimed to be from the Cherokee Nation.
She
which
did, she
we-
sure did. She
But-
claims that she at least claimed her father was Cherokee. Maybe she was smart enough to not claim her herself was Cherokee, but that she had grown up on a reservation in North Carolina, which I think was supposed to add to the mysterious nature, because part of being racist is making people exotic. And I believe that word is used at some point.
Oh, Robert Stack calls her exotic for sure.
Yeah, gross. Okay. So on the night they met, he learned that she was a go-go dancer at a bar in Augusta. And the reenactments of this go-go bar, I could not love more. It is literally the woman who's playing Georgia, yeah, like in a crop top and booty shorts, just like barely dancing, just like kind of like moving her hips slightly to side with her arms raised.
This is
Which-
how I would dance if I danced, which I
Exactly.
don't. I would just like kind of
Exactly.
awkwardly shimmy around.
Ah,
Am I sexy now? Like,
give me money. I'm a go-go dancer. So he started spending all of his free time at the bar watching her dance. Sure, of course. He learned that she had 2 daughters, Sally and Angel, from her first marriage, which lived with an old woman named Granny, who was not actually related to her. We do not learn more about that, and I'm very sad about it.
who was Granny?
Who was Granny? What was her deal? She seemed great. I don't know. We see an old woman in like a house coat taking care of her kids for free? I'm not sure. Within 2 weeks, Georgia and her daughters moved into Daryl's house. Daryl noticed, he's pretty sharp. He noticed that Georgia was acting somewhat paranoid. Clues?
Despite noticing something is off, Daryl asks surprisingly few questions.
Daryl is chill and much more accepting than I might be of someone that I have known for 2 weeks and let move into my house. He doesn't see really the need to ask Georgia why she always keeps the curtains completely closed and why she won't pick up the phone unless he calls with like a prearranged series of rings so that she knows that it's him. But she eventually admitted that she was worried that her ex-husband would come back and try to kidnap the children, which seemed to be explanation enough. On several occasions, Georgia was harassed and even stalked by unknown individuals. One night, when Daryl went to pick her up from the bar, he found her talking to 2 well-dressed men. And they're just like guys that, like, I don't know, they look like they work for the government, at least according to the reaction. They're wearing like hideous dark suits that don't fit right and
the Men in
sunglasses.
Black, right?
Yeah.
I feel like that's how we have to describe. Like our listeners know, Men in Black.
Yeah. And when he was like, hey, what are those guys that clearly aren't here for a titty bar? What are they doing? She was like, oh, don't worry about it. They're nobody. And Daryl's real cool. So he was just like, all right, man.
Sounds good. Daryl, again, asks no follow-up questions.
A few weeks later, 3 members of a motorcycle gang called the Devil's Disciples showed up at a club and were harassing Georgia.
Is that what we should have called our listeners instead of mystery solvers?
Yes. Oh my God. Yes.
The Devil's Disciples.
If we ever create another Patreon tier, it'll be the Devil's Disciples.
Yes.
So they were at the club harassing her, and when Daryl asked, hey, what's happening here? She was like, okay, look, I used to run with the Devil's Disciples in Atlanta. They want me back, but I told them I refuse to go.
And again, what does Daryl do? All right.
He's just like, all right, that makes sense to me. A man of few words. So he, being the good boyfriend, goes to pick her up from work, and the bike gang guys are in a van and they like chase them through the streets while Georgia's like yelling like, they're right on our tail, and he's like, I know it, hun, we're gonna get out of this.
This reenactment is kind of funny because the whole time she's like, they're right there, and you could tell reenactor Gerald is like, yeah, I can see them.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, thanks, Georgia. Some more information about like why they're so mad would be helpful more than you just pointing at a van, but whatever. This is stopped because eventually the police like pull them over, like, why the hell are you speeding through the streets? And the van has to go. So, but she didn't really explain to the police officers. She was like, oh, I don't know who those guys were. She kept her mysterious secrets to herself. She did sometimes claim that her ex-husband was behind it. What? Okay, this reenactment is like kind of hilarious, kind of terrifying. We see a door that has the chain on it, but is not locked, right? So the door opens, it's caught by the chain. A man's arm comes through, like grasping, and the guy's going, "I'm gonna get you," which I feel like is like a nightmare I had as a child. Possibly because I saw this part of Unsolved Mysteries. I don't know. But it seems like so ridiculous that that's like what harassment would literally look like. Like a man's arm going, "I'm going to get you." Like very blatant.
It is a little bit ridiculous. And then it's made slightly more ridiculous by the actress that plays George's like blood-curdling scream. It's like literally out of like a bad horror movie.
Yeah. Usually when stuff like this happened, it was when Daryl was not home. But in this case with the arm, he was home. So he got his gun and
his tiny little revolver. I had to squint to see it.
I don't know if that's like an army issue thing or that was just his gun. But he got the gun and then went outside, but whoever's arm that was already gone, and they called the police, but the police didn't find anything. In 1977, Daryl was reassigned to Fort Ord in Northern California. So they both move out west, and on the way there, they get married. That actually happened before the arm thing. So now they're living together in Northern California, but the harassment has continued, right? Several days later, the intruder painted a message on the back door that said, "I'll get you, Jet." And Gerald was like, "Is this a nickname for you?" And she was like, "No, I don't know who that is." "Who's Jet? Not me. Gotta go."
The way Robert Stack describes it was he assumed that was one of her nicknames from when she ran with the Devil's Disciples. Doesn't seem to be true, but he assumed so. This man is married to this woman at this point and knows almost nothing about her past.
He was like, "She told me she'd tell me later." And that seemed to literally be good enough for him. Like, she said she'd fill me in on the details later. We just hadn't gotten to that part. All right. Whether or not her nickname... Like, because earlier I think she had said that one of her nicknames for Georgia was Jerry, which kind of makes sense. But
I think he called her Jerry, too.
Yeah.
So he was like, "Oh, Jet must be another nickname." And she was like, "Nah." And he was like, "Okay." That seemed to be the extent of it.
I'm sure someone's just going around the neighborhood painting, "I'll get you, Jet," on the back of all doors. That's a normal thing to do.
Sure.
In August of 1977, she gave birth to their son. But there was complications with the birth, including violent headaches. So she was eventually hospitalized and slipped into a coma.
That was her They had two. They had two kids, I think.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
And
okay, so she had complications with her first son. Then they moved back to Daryl's hometown of Michigan. I'm looking at Unsolved Mysteries wiki now, so I get this all right. They moved back to Michigan. Then, after the birth of their second son, there's more complications. She's hospitalized and slips into a coma, where she's diagnosed as having an aneurysm.
She had headaches so bad that it lasted for 3 weeks, and she couldn't even get out of bed. And at which point, he had to call an ambulance.
Ugh.
That's horrifying.
Horrifying. Something to keep in mind if you think that women should just give birth. Okay. So, a few days later, she died at the age of 22, leaving behind Daryl and 4 young children. When Daryl tried to contact George's family members, he realized he had never actually met any of them.
Huh.
In fact, he had almost no idea about her past. He called a man with her father's name, but the guy was like, "I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't have any children." So Daryl went on a mission back to the bar in Augusta where Georgia used to work to ask about her and her family, and everyone there
asking these questions before she died.
But everybody claimed not to know her, even though he knew that they did because he used to go to that bar all the time.
This is my theory about her giving him the name Georgia. Like, does he know that she was employed under that name? I kind of think she wasn't. Because when he showed up years later, it was like, don't you remember Georgia? And they're like, "We don't know who you're talking about."
We don't know what Georgia. Yeah, it would have really helped if he had more than this one grainy photo of her.
Yeah, and a name that they probably didn't know her by because there's a good chance she was employed under her real name.
I'm also kind of guessing that legally they're not married because I'm not sure she used her real name.
Yeah, I don't know the legality of their marriage, to be honest.
Okay. So he took this as everyone was like stonewalling him and didn't want to talk, but maybe honestly they had no idea what he was talking about. So he contacted a local TV station, and this made no sense to me, to air a picture of Georgia for 24 hours.
So
Asking
they do that with missing persons. They will air someone's photo like every hour for like 24 hours, but wasn't the case here, and it seems like they were kind of like, yeah.
Yeah, so people with any information were supposed to contact him, but for unknown reasons, it was only shown once for a few seconds. And when he asked the TV station about it, they told him to drop the subject. What?
Which admittedly sounds suspicious.
The Augusta police were also evasive, or I don't know, just not helpful. Daryl did not understand why nobody is willing to talk to him about Georgia and his family and her family. All he knows is that she was apparently from Augusta, Georgia, and that her father was Native American. I don't think either of those things are true. He is searching for her family because he wants to tell them what happened to her. And he also wants her daughters and their sons to be reunited with his family. Okay, so this is solved. Thanks to viewers' tips, Daryl learns that Georgia's real name was Edith Geraldine Johns Moore, and that her family lived in Savannah. So her daughters, Sally and Angel, were reunited with their biological father for the first time in like 12 years or something like that. And they also met their other relatives. They also were in for a surprise that Edith had 2 more children.
That's a lot of children.
Rhonda and Eugene.
Before the age of 22.
She had in a relationship prior to Sally and Angel. So they are all united. The reasons why she was harassed and kept her past a secret are unknown.
Did you do any additional research on this case?
There is nothing.
So
there is literally a discussion board on Georgia. That's all I could find.
Did you find the claims on Reddit that she had her first children at a ridiculously young age?
No.
That was, and I'm not going to present this as fact because it was a fucking Reddit comment. But what was suspicious to me about it is that she had, how many, 5 children?
4, I think. Well, no, she had 6 because she has the 2 children she has when she meets Daryl. She has 2 children with him, and then it turns out she had 2 children from a previous relationship. So she's had 6 children by the age of 22.
Which is the only thing that made me think maybe there's something to this comment, because that is so many children to have before the age of 22.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's indicative of why she didn't want to tell him about her past. There's no other information, so I don't even know if it's true, but there's a chance that she had some trauma, is what I'm saying.
She has to have had those first set of children very young, just timeline wise, and it makes me wonder if that's why she was not in touch with her family. Is it maybe they kicked her out, or the relationship between them were no longer good? Because for her to be, I mean, how old is she when she meets Gerald? I don't know.
Probably 19,
20? Yeah, 19
or 20.
Yeah, and she has 2 children, and so to go back further than that and have another 2 children. She's definitely having them as a teenager, possibly a very young teenager.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I'm guessing, who knows this thing with like the biker gang? That's really weird.
The whole story is kind of wild, honestly.
She was a woman of mystery. Yeah. Not because she was brunette, but just because she was willing to marry a man and tell him literally nothing about herself.
That's a mystery. Why he asked very few questions is another mystery, but you know what? He seemed fine with it.
Yeah, and he really only wanted to find her family just so that he could let them know that she had died.
Honestly, like, we make fun of this Daryl guy, but he seemed like a nice guy too. He raised her children.
He did. No, he really did.
And he was like, look, I don't care what she did in her past. I just want to know who she was, and I want to tell her family that she's dead, because as far as I can tell, no one fucking knows.
Yeah, and they didn't know.
So,
and they wouldn't have ever known if he hadn't tracked them down with Unsolved Mysteries. That would have been an unknown for them. I don't know if they were looking for her or not. That's not clear. But at least they know the truth, and her children could be reunited with their siblings, and maybe that's some family that they need. It's a good segment.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right, we got one last one.
This is, do you remember what this was? Was this
This was an
a missing
unexplained
person?
death.
An unexplained death? Okay. So this is kind of a new segment here on Unsolved Mysteries. We are looking for the identity of an unknown an unknown woman found murdered in Panasofsky, Florida. So on February 19th, 1971, two teenagers hitchhiking along Interstate 75 discovered the body of a young woman who had been tossed from the Lake Panasofsky Bridge in Florida. The woman was in her late teens or early 20s. She carried no identification and had been dead for several weeks. She had been strangled with a man's belt that was still wrapped around her throat. Police were unable to identify the woman or locate her killer. She was laid to rest 6 months later. So 10 years later, the case was reopened by Sheriff Jamie Adams and her body was exhumed. Sheriff Adams had forensic anthropologist Dr. William Maples investigate the body of the young woman. So
yes, clearly this police department like suddenly got a bunch of money because this all sounds very expensive.
yeah, it's interesting. And Robert Stack, first of all, is in a very unusual outfit for Robert Stack. He's wearing like a white turtleneck and like
And,
this.
with a blazer over it. Oh,
Yeah.
yes. He looks like he's at a boat show.
Maybe that's where he came from. I don't know.
Probably.
But he talks about Sheriff Jamie as having like, I don't know, this personal like crusade to find.
That guy's creepy, right? Can I say that?
He comes off a little creepy.
Where he's like, as a daddy and a granddaddy. And I was like, nope, don't like either of that.
No, not at all. And he also, in trying to justify why he was doing this, why he was like reopening this cold case, he kept referring to a Sunday school teacher that must love this woman.
Yeah, that seemed optimistic to say the least.
He
was really stuck on Sunday school teachers, and that maybe one of them will be able to identify her.
What I think compounds the creepiness to this is that the way he talks about this woman who died, and she was a woman, she was in her 20s, it makes her sound like, I actually had to like almost rewatch this segment, and
he's talking about it like she's 6 years old.
Was this a child? No,
yeah.
This was a grown-ass woman who we'll find out later had a child of her own. This is not a baby, but this man talks about her as he's like, there must be a Sunday school teacher out there that's looking for this lady, or this girl. What? She's an adult. Anyway, so it's weird. But he did reopen this case, and
none of my Sunday school teachers have seen me in a real long-ass time, and guess what? They're not looking for me.
Yeah, we're actually, to make it clear, looking for the identity of this grown-ass woman. But he did reopen this case, which is admirable, because it seems like, they could have easily just said,
oh, sure,
whatever. We're not looking into this anymore. It's a cold case. Put it on the shelf. So the Dr. William Maples re-examined the body of the young woman. He discovered that she had orthopedic surgery on her right ankle, which was done by drilling holes in the leg bone and then winding the tendon through the holes. This was called a Watson-Jones or modified Watson-Jones technique, and he believes that a physician who performed the surgery would possibly remember doing the procedure.
Okay, sure, that's a clue.
Yeah, Sheriff Adams next contacted forensic artist Linda Galliner, who is an expert in making composite sketches based on human remains. I do not know the efficacy of this technique. I'm just going to say that right now.
Yeah.
They take a picture of the skull and they put like a semi-transparent paper over the top, and then they just draw what the person would look like, and what they come up with doesn't like totally look like a normal human. I'm not sure. But that's what they do.
It's a wild guesstimation. I mean, it's like based on the structure of the skull, but your flesh can be different. Like,
yeah,
there's all sorts of factors. So
it seems a bit sketchy to me, but at any rate, they don't have much else to go on. She also created age regression sketches to show how the victim may have looked at a younger age.
Because this guy's like obsessed with her being a kid.
Yeah, this is the other reason why I was kind of like, wait, what? How old was this person? Which I guess I kind of understand. Like, maybe you would recognize this child, but
it's made up also.
Wouldn't it be more likely to have someone recognize her like closer to the age when she had died? Like,
At the
As,
very
like, I don't
end,
remember that well what kids look like. If like I don't really remember what like my niece and nephew look like. They're older now, right? I know what they look like now. I don't necessarily remember what they look like as 6-year-olds.
yeah, I guess the idea was maybe people hadn't seen her for a while before she died.
Sure, I guess.
I don't know. At the very end, they do a like more modern version of it, and they've somehow reconstructed the clothes she was wearing, which is like a very 70s outfit with like a poncho and these like printed pattern pants. And Mac just goes, "Well, at least we know she was cool." Because it is a pretty great outfit.
It honestly is. So, they estimated her age at about 20 years old. She had great amounts of surgery done to her legs and extensive dental work, including crowns, caps, and fillings. She had also given birth to at least one child. So again, we're talking about an adult. Police suspect that the woman may have left family behind who may remember who she was. So let me see. Where was I? So I'm reading off the Unsolved Mysteries wiki. Unfortunately, her identity was never discovered.
That's a bummer.
In 2012, a new analysis of the victim's isotopes unveiled that her origins were probably from Greece. In the fall of 2012, her case was featured on a Greek missing persons show. One viewer called in and identified the victim as a friend of hers whose name was Constantina, who had a brother serving in the Navy near Livrio. She said that both her and Constantina went to school in Kifisia, which is a suburb of Athens, and were taught home economics.
Okay.
The caller, Constantina, and several other girls were part of a program for that school that sent them to either the United States or Australia with a 2-year contract for work. The caller said that she had lost contact with Constantina when they were both sent to separate countries, the caller to Australia and Constantina to the United States in 1970. When the Greek show was updated, another viewer called in claiming that the two girls went to the United States with Constantina and that their whereabouts were also unknown. However, a daughter of one of the girls allegedly with Constantina saw the updated show and called to say that her mother was actually alive and well and was actually sent to Australia, not the United States. So it's really not clear if there's anything to this. There is a picture on Unsolved Mysteries wiki of Constantina, like the actual woman who they're claiming was the identity of. Oh, by the way, they called this Jane Doe Little Miss Panasofsky, which I think is, and I'm pretty sure that Sheriff Jamie Adams is the one that came up with that name.
Yes, and it's patronizing and weird.
So I like don't even want to say it because it kind of squeaks me out. But yeah, they called her Little Miss Panasofsky. So the updated picture of her does sort of resemble Constantina, but also kind of doesn't. I don't know. There's basically no relatives of Constantina have been able to be located, so they can't do DNA testing. So it's
what happened to Constantina?
So we don't actually hear from any relatives of Constantina. We just hear from a woman who was allegedly her friend in school, who said this looks like her, but I lost contact with her when we went to different countries. So I don't even know if Constantina was missing. I have no idea.
That's very interesting though.
Yeah. Anyway, she hasn't been identified, but you know what? Baby, with there's the family genealogy stuff that's sort of become popular.
Sure. Yeah.
Maybe this is an instance where she will be identified at some point.
Well, hopefully we get an update on that.
Yeah,
I did really like the reenactment of the two very 70s dudes who found the body. One who has his shirt unbuttoned, like basically to the waist, and the other one is wearing this very thick cloth headband that's made from the same fabric of his shirt, which is kind of this celestial pattern. It's beautiful.
That's a look. All right. Well, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say I didn't have any mustaches from that one. I had a mustache from the last segment I forgot to mention, which was reenactment. Daryl had a mustache.
Oh, yes. He sure did.
I called it the precise young man.
Nice. Yeah, that
because
was
he
a good
was this
mustache.
like buff military dude with a very like little daily upkeep kind of mustache.
Totally. All right, should we rate this episode?
I think we have to by law.
Mysteriousness?
You know what? Kind of mysterious.
I actually agree, yeah.
This last case is mysterious. Even though we find out who Georgia is, we don't really know who Georgia is. She's still a mysterious young woman.
She is, in fact, a woman of mystery.
She really is. And what else did we talk about today?
Lucy's killer, her murder was solved, but it was mysterious at the time.
Yeah, and then we have Patricia, who was missing for 33 years and found alive.
That's super mysterious. So yeah, I'm going to give it a thumbs up.
That gets a thumbs way up for me.
Reenactments?
I thought pretty good. The Go-Go Bar reenactments are hilarious. There's 2 car chase scenes in this episode. Both of those reenactments were fairly well done. The arm coming through the door, hilarious. Okay, Georgia's reenactments are more funny than good, but there's
in
some
a
good
way
ones
that makes it good.
Yeah, I really do like that segment, and I thought some of the other reenactments were actually well done, so thumbs up.
Yeah, I agree. And I gotta give it a thumbs up for fashion too, honestly.
There's great fashions in this. We get lots of 70s fashions. We get the highest hair I have ever seen in my goddamn life. We get men wearing headbands. We get crop tops. We get all kinds, bell bottoms galore.
We got sweaters. Robert Stack is wearing a turtleneck. I think this is a menagerie of different fashions, and I love it.
I think people should really watch this episode, pick a look, and try to recreate it.
Please do that. Look, you got time. Post in our Facebook group.
Yeah, make a little quarantine, just the things you got around the house. If you have to braid some tea towels together so you can make a cloth headband, so be it. Let's see these quarantine reenactment looks.
Unsolved Mysteries cosplay.
Yes, I'm all on board for Unsolved Mysteries cosplay.
All right, so on a possible 0 to 5 Robert Stack scale, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking a 4.
I think I have to agree. I feel like we've had some duds. Last week was for sure a dud, and compared to that, this was thoroughly entertaining. I watched it twice.
This is very good.
Enjoyed it both times.
There's good mysteries in here. The pacing is good. There's 4 stories. None of it is like so spectacular that I'm gonna force someone to watch it, but all in all, very good episode.
Yeah, I agree. 4
Robert Stacks. 4 Robert Stacks out of 5 Robert Stacks.
All right. Do you have a recommendation this week?
Yes, I do. I'm going to recommend a little film nobody's ever heard of. Just kidding. I'm recommending Parasite. It won the Oscar. Maybe you've heard of it. It's on Hulu now, though.
Oh.
And I had not seen it because I had been waiting for it to come to my favorite theater, the Riverview. Been waiting and waiting and waiting and looking every week to see if it was there. And then a pandemic had to be really rude and ruin my plans. So I hadn't seen it yet. It's on Hulu now. It came out to Hulu for my birthday. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Hulu. And I watched it last night, and it lives up to the hype. It's fucking solid. It's a very good movie.
I've been wanting a movie to watch. Maybe I'll watch that. I've been tossing around watching Midsommar because it's free on Amazon Prime, and I'm not usually into horror movies, but you saying that movie's praises, but maybe I'll check out Parasite in addition.
I think you would really like Parasite.
I didn't realize it was on Hulu, and I pay for Hulu every month, forgetting that I still have Hulu, and I should maybe get my $6 worth.
Yeah, I think that will make it worth it. I don't want to say a ton about it. I know everybody's already heard about it, but I did think that it lived up to all the hype. It's remarkably well done. Just the pacing, everything is so well thought out. You got great characters, great writing, all that stuff. I saw the director say that when he was making it, he thought he was making a very Korean movie and was surprised that it has like such universal appeal, except that as it turns out, we all hate capitalism. And I kept thinking about that while watching the movie. Like, yes, this does relate to me and to so many other people because we hate capitalism. It brings us together as a society.
I love it.
Yeah, it's really good. So if you haven't seen that yet, if you like me, we're waiting for it to come to some other theater or whatever. Now is your chance to get your money's worth out of Hulu.
Awesome. Okay, I am recommending something that a lot of people have probably already found as well, and that is a Netflix original, like one of their limited series that came out pretty recently, and it's called How to Fix a Drug Scandal.
Oh yeah.
So this was recommended to me by a friend of the pod, Jaina, a friend of ours, who said it was really, really good. And I honestly probably wouldn't have chosen this. It just didn't really appeal to me, like when I watched
same.
the little blurb.
Same.
But she had said it was super good, and I thought I had seen some other people on Facebook like singing the praises of the show, and so I decided to watch it, and I thought it was really good. The gist of it is there is a scandal in a drug lab. And it's actually two different scandals, and they're sort of this basically they're both the same in that chemists at these two different drug labs in the same area were falsifying the results of their drug analysis.
Shit.
So when police officers arrest someone for drugs, they will take the evidence, the drugs, and they will have it analyzed at a lab so you can definitively say this is heroin, this is crack cocaine, whatever. People already know that, I'm sure. But it's critical to the fair, quote unquote, fair prosecution of these crimes, because if it's not drugs, then you should not be prosecuted. You should not be going to jail for having sugar in your pocket or whatever.
Vitamin powder.
Yeah, exactly. So, but the gist of it, and I won't go into too many details, so I don't want to give away too much, but there's one chemist who it seems like she was trying to like basically help the prosecutors, and so she was making up like false positives, things like that. And then there was another woman who was actually addicted to drugs herself, and so she was stealing the drugs.
Oh damn.
And using them. And there's a lot more to the story as far as like systemic issues, cover-ups. There's a ton of heroes that are like throughout this documentary that are fighting for the rights of incarcerated people who were, incarcerated because of basically they put people behind bars. This is the evidence that without it they would not be in prison. So there's like people you can root for. There's obviously there's some tragedy and there's some really sad stories, but there's also some like happy like triumphs throughout it. So it's also really revealing. Like a lot of these documentaries is pretty revealing about the justice system. It's not like super surprising. If you listen to our podcast, you probably are like us and you're aware of these injustices. But I thought it was a well done documentary, and it's a shorter limited series than others.
Okay.
Like I watched it all in one evening. I think there's only a few. I mean, I watched them all back to back, so I don't know exactly how many episodes there were, but I want to say there's like 3 or 4. It's not as many. So if you're looking for something to watch and you want something true crime that's a little bit different than murder, I would recommend it. It's not like the most uplifting thing to watch, so if you're looking for like pure escapism, maybe choose something else. But I enjoyed it.
Yeah, that sounds good. I would watch that. Yeah. I would say just the title and the little blurb did not draw me in, but that actually sounds pretty good.
Yeah, it didn't draw me in either, and if I hadn't been recommended it by someone, I probably wouldn't have watched it, but I did like it. So I'm recommending it to all of you.
Okay, I will try before this episode gets out to update our website to be up to date so that if people are looking for shows to watch, podcasts to listen to, books to read, whatever, you can go there and browse our past recommendations.
Great idea.
All right, I think that's the end of our episode.
Sounds good. Let's plug our shit.
It comes to a close. Did you know there's a thing called Twitter, Instagram, a Facebook group? Why, we're on all of them.
You can find us. We're at Perhaps It's You on all platforms. Highly recommend our Twitter. Liz does a great job.
See me fight with people on Twitter.
It's entertaining every day. And then our Facebook group, we have a Facebook page too. You can give that a like. But our Facebook group is a great place to interact with people. Again, you can find my Animal Crossing post. Friend me. Send me rare fruits. But also
I think I'm going to get Animal Crossing because I want to wear the hat.
I mean, if that's the reason, then let it so be it. I think you would really enjoy it.
I'm a little worried about leaving my house unattended and it getting full of roaches, but I do.
I don't think that's going to happen. Is that a thing that happens?
Someone told me it is.
I feel like you don't play for a long period of time.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. See, I play like fucking every day now, so I wouldn't know, but
I think if you leave your house unattended, it's like, you know how your Tamagotchi would die?
oh yeah,
Your house will get full of roaches if you
See,
don't.
I'm still pretty new to this game. Shout out to some of our listeners who taught me some things recently. But it's
Also, your villagers will get bored and just wander away.
yeah, they will ask to leave, which is sometimes a good thing if you don't necessarily like the ones you got. Because when they leave, then you can get better ones.
Oh,
But
I have so much to learn.
you do,
Okay.
and I think you would really enjoy it. Anyway, we were plugging our stuff. Yeah, follow us. Email us, perhaps it's youpodcast@gmail.com. Submit
have
your
a-
zine
Yes.
submission.
If you have a zine submission, send it there. If you have a spooky paranormal tale you want to share with us, send it there. We also have a website, perhapsitsyou.com. There's a form on there. You can fill that out.
We also have a Patreon. You can support our show. Just $1 a month will get you access to a whole bunch of bonus content. I don't know that we know what we're gonna do this month. We
Okay.
we release a bonus episode every month.
I have a suggestion.
Okay, let's hear it.
There is a show called Celebrity Ghost Stories. And I saw that there's an episode where John Waters tells his story.
Okay, I think we have to do that. I didn't know that was a show. Where is that at? Is that Amazon?
I want to say Amazon.
Oh, I've never heard of this, but it sounds really interesting.
There's a best of at some point too. I mean, okay, look, celebrity is being used loosely. A lot of these people are very, very low down on the famous list, but maybe we could pick out a couple episodes of celebrity ghost stories to watch.
I think that's a good idea. All right, yeah, check us out. Patreon.com. Search Perhaps It's You. Is that it?
Give us a 5-star review. You know we deserve it. Just like that rooster walking down the street knows you like to be pecked, you know that we deserve a 5-star review.
That's the best request for reviews I've ever heard.
And that's it. Okay, everyone. Stay safe. Be well. Say hi to BD Wong.
Bye.